All right, this is the top view of my drawer. If we take a look at it, I've got my dado rabbit joints here in the corner. What I want to do is I'm going to actually get rid of the drawer front so that we can lay these pieces out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and flip these pieces down. All right, so I've laid my pieces down flat. I've broken this box up here so we can see these corners and how they're going to lay out. So you can notice that the front view and the back view are going to be pretty straightforward in that we have our 3/8 dado here, 1/4 inch dado on the bottom, and a 3/8 dado there. The problem we're going to run into is over here we have a 3/8 rabbet and a 3/8 rabbet. But you'll notice that when we lay this down flat, we have joints on two different sides. So I have a joint over here on the bottom side of the drawer. I've got my drawer top view opened up so that we can start drawing these parts out because I'm going to need to know the lengths of all these pieces and look at my front view and things like that. So I've got a box here drawn. This just represents a sheet of plywood. It's 48 by 96. And you're going to be drawing this on your sheet that's already drawn out. But I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit so that you can see things a little bit more close up than you can when I'm drawn so far back. So I'm going to just zoom into this 1/4 of a sheet here so we can work on that. And so first thing I need to know is how big are these pieces? So if I open up my front view and we take a look at the front view. All right, so we're going to look down here at the bottom. This is where our drawers are going to go. We're going to take this number and divide it by 2. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. And we're going to subtract an inch off of that. So that's 8. So we're going to come here. Our pieces are 8 inches wide. And I'm going to open up my drawer view again. 8, and I have 2 of them at 17 1/4 and 2 of them at 36. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to come out 36 inches and find that node. And I'm going to come down 8 inches and draw that back. Now, when we do things for the CNC router, we need to leave ourselves a 1/4 inch, so 0.25. And then this is where I'm going to start my next piece, 36 and 8 and back down. Okay. So these are my drawer front and back. And if I look here, I've got these grooves on here. And if we open up this view again, we can see on the front, this is what my front should look like. There should be 3/8, then 3/8. So if I zoom in here a little bit closer, I'm going to draw on the side over 3/8. And there's going to be a line straight down. And then I'm going to draw over another 3/8. And there's going to be a line straight down. Okay, so it just looks like that because we're just seeing the straight lines. We're not seeing the depth that we normally would on a 3D drawing when we're doing it 2D. So 3/8 and then another line at 3/8. So we're going to do that on this side too. 3/8. Connect that down. We're going to go over 3/8 and connect that down. So those are our ends. We would need to do the same thing on the second piece. Over 3/8 and down. And for this, I'm just going to show you one drawer, but this project would have 2 drawers. But I'm just going to show you one because it's going to be replicated. Everything's the same. These drawers are both the same. So now that we've got that on there, you can see we've got this groove that needs to be put in here. So that groove is the same that we did for cabinet making 1. And I'm going to come right here to this notch and I'm going to come up. Actually, yeah, we can go to this one here. Up 0.5. That's a 1/2 inch. That's how much material is going to be underneath the drawer bottom. And then we're going to come up again, 0.25. And that's going to give us just a little 1/4 inch groove for our bottom to slide into. And that's what's going to hold the bottom in place as we're doing this. So that was a 1/2 inch and then a 1/4 inch or 3/4 total to the outside edge. So on our back piece, this actually needs to be 3/4 of an inch shorter. So if I put my dimensions on here, this one was 8. This one should be 3/4 of an inch shorter. Remember, in cabinet making 1, we made it shorter so that the bottom can slide past the back and into this place. So this allows us to put the bottom in after the box is constructed. You could put a groove on here, and then you have to have the bottom just right and slide it in during the gluing process. But for what we normally do, we're going to highlight. Oops, I just want this bottom line, but I want all parts of the bottom line. And I'm going to shift this up with the 4-arrow move tool, and I'm going to come up 0.75 because we got a 1/2 inch and then a 1/4 inch. That's 3/4 total. So that will give me the right size. So this would be our front. This would be our back. So now let's take a look at what our sides are going to look like. Our sides are going to be a flat square piece with a 3/8 rabbet drawn on the end of the board. So a 3/8 on each end. But let's see what we need to do for our length. So if I come back here, our length is going to be 17 1/4. So let's go ahead and draw this. We're going to come down another 1/4 inch, right? Remember to leave a 1/4 inch between each piece so the router bit can fit through there. Then we're going to go 17 1/4 long. So 17.25. That's how long that's going to be. And we're going to come back. It was 8 inches. 8 inches and over. And we're going to need 2 of these. So just like I did there on the top of the front and back, I'm going to do another piece. So I'm going to come down another 1/4 inch, 0.25. And then I'm going to come down 17 1/4 and back down 8. The only one that's shorter is the back piece, and that's so the bottom can slide in. So these ones, if we look back on our views here, it's just going to be 3/8 in and a line down. So I'm going to take my pencil tool. I'm going to come right here and come in 3/8 and draw a line straight down. So I went too far. I went into the gap. So I'm going to do that again. Command Z to undo and draw that straight down to there. I'm going to come in here and come in 3/8 and straight down. And then in here, 3/8. And in this way, 3/8. Okay, now we don't see the bottom groove because that's on the other side of the side. This is where we're going to have to do a 2-sided job or a 2-sided cut. It would cut these out, and then when we were done, we would go back through. But one thing that we would want to do on that is I'm going to move one of these out here. One thing we would want to do is give ourselves some extra space. So if I move over, to draw our pieces a little bit bigger with the border, I'm going to use the pencil tool, and I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to go 2 inches up, enter. I'm going to go 2 inches out, enter. I'm going to come down to the bottom and go 2 inches, and I'm going to come down and go 2 inches. This is going to make sure that my piece is centered on my border, so everything is exactly centered on there. That way, if I turn this over right or left, it really shouldn't matter too much because the rabbets and dados are going to be centered on the board. So I'm going to come off 2 and down 2. And now I'm just going to connect these lines. So I'm going to come from here and go down. I want to come out to here. And I want to come over to this point. Oh, that's not lining up. Why is that? Let's not be too fast with stuff here. Make sure that, oh, for some reason this line is not even touching. Let's re-pull that because that's messing us up. Down 2. So I'm just creating this larger box around my original piece that's going to be my border. And I'm going to come in and delete these little corners that I put on so that I'm getting just that bordered piece around there. Okay, now I did 2 inches here on the side. It could be a little less on the side. You could do 1 inch, but on the ends, we definitely need 2 inches. So now what I'm going to do is we've got to find where the center of this is, and we can do that a couple ways. We can measure the board with the dimension tool and then find where center is. Or if we take our pencil tool, we should be able to come out here and just hover until we find the baby blue colored node. This is the midpoint. So I'm going to click and drag that straight over because that's the center of that edge. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to find the midpoint and pull that over. Now, if you're thinking something doesn't look right, take a minute and pull that dimension and make sure that it's centered on the board. It is. So you can leave those, you can delete them, whatever you want to do. Now we're going to put a radius on here. We're going to put a circle. And the circle is going to be for some dowels that are going to be drilled into the tabletop. So to do this, I want to put this in the center here. I know this was 2 inches, so I could come down 1 inch, and I'm just going to make a little shape there, a little intersection, so I know where to start my circle. I'm going to come down 1 inch, and again do that. Now when I take my radius, and if you don't see your radius up here, your circle, then what you may be doing is you're maybe on a different tool and you have to select it. So usually it's the rectangle tool. If you select that little arrow, you can pull down and hit circle. And now I can pick the center where I just made that intersection, and I'm going to pull it out. And when I do this, if you look down here in the bottom right hand corner, down here, it tells me that I'm working with radius. So that needs to be half the diameter. I want a 3/8 diameter hole. So now that I got my circle tool, I'm going to pull this out and I'm going to put in a 3/16 because that's the radius of a 3/8 diameter. So 3/16, enter, and there's my circle, a 3/8 hole. 3/16 is the radius, enter. Now I should have a diameter of 3/8. And you can check that if you want by using the dimension tool and clicking on the circle, and it tells you the radius there, 3/16 is the radius of a 3/8 diameter. So that looks good. Now we're going to come in and zoom in here a little bit, and we're going to clean up this excess lines that we put in here. I don't want to delete that circle, so that's why I'm zooming in, so I can delete the outside of that and right inside the circle. So all I'm left with is a circle with no connecting lines. It'll make it easier when we get over to the CNC router to have that just as a circle. If you need to save a little room on your plywood and we don't want quite as much there, I can take this line down the side, and I want to keep it centered still. So I'm going to move it in 1 inch. And that way I still have some material to hold on to, and I can still maintain the extra border around the outside. So I'm going to do the same thing to this side, and what I did to one side I want to do to the other so that I make sure it stays center. And I'm going to come up 1 inch. That way I'm not wasting quite so much material around there, and if I have multiple pieces, then I'm not wasting that much material times however many drawer parts you have. So you need to leave a little bit of room, because one thing that's going to happen is the drawer or the router bit is going to be a 1/4 inch outside here. So that really is only about 3/4 of an inch on the sides that it's holding on to. I wouldn't go much smaller than that. I think that's a good size. So now we should be ready to make a copy of this, since our 2 sides are the same, right? 1, 2, right here are the sides. And both sides are going to get cut on 2 sides, so we have to have 2 of them. So now if I come in here, I can erase my original ones because I have this one done. And get rid of all, I didn't want to get rid of that whole line, but I'll come back and fill that in. So I'm going to come back, fill that in, and I'm going to make a copy of this. Oh, there's a little line there yet. I'm going to highlight this and go Command or Control C, Control V, whatever platform you're on. So now I have 2 of them. When it comes to moving these parts, you can put them anywhere you want. I could put them down. I just got to maintain that 1/4 inch. I could put them right here. I could put them down here. I could put them wherever you want. It doesn't matter. The holes that we drew on there, those 3/8 holes, that's going to determine on the next cut what is done. So right now it doesn't matter where they're at. It can go anywhere on the sheet. It could go here. It could go down here. It really does not matter the orientation. And there we go. So there's our 2 drawer sides. And so it'll cut out the outside shape first and do one joint, and then as we flip it over, then it will do our other joints and cut out the inside part so it's cut right to size. So really that border that we created is so that the machine has something to hold on to, and these holes will index it just right so that nothing's offset or nothing is not square when we're done. So that's how we would go ahead and draw our drawer parts and the joints and making them bigger. For the purpose of laying out our plywood and making sure everything is running the right direction, I do want you to put the wood grain on. The wood grain runs length of the project, right? So it goes the long side of the plywood. Just make sure we got everything running the right way. So now that we have one of these drawn, we could take and copy and paste this, do a duplicate set. That way we have all 8 parts that we would need for 2 drawers. At this point, I'm going to stop, and you can replicate this process as many number of times as you have drawers. Again, if you have any questions, please talk to your instructor. We'll make sure to get those questions answered and keep you moving along on your project plans.